No, thank you. Sleepy. Come back in an hour. Need sleepy. Please go away. Let me sleep for the love of God!
It's now time for the Billy C. Morning Show, part of the Billy C. Boxing Network. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're coming to you live from the Billy C. Studios in Lake George, New York. I'm Bill Caligiero, and it's time for the Billy C. Morning Show. Good morning, everybody. Hope everybody's doing okay. We're glad to have you part of our morning, and of course, we're glad to be part of your morning. And I hope everyone had a great weekend. Today's show is being brought to you in part by Sal's Neighborhood Pizzeria and Italian Restaurant located in St. Simons Island, Georgia. Check out the website, www.salsneighborhoodpizzeria.com, or give my man a call, 912-268-2328, 912-268-2328. Remember, if you're heading south or north on I-95, literally 15 minutes out of your way, and you won't regret it. Taste this stuff, man. I'm ready to hop in the car and go get a meal right now. www.salsneighborhoodpizzeria.com. Today's show is also being brought to you in part by my book, Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Man on the Planet, is available right now where all good books are sold. You could literally get a copy of it right now if you go to barnesandnoble.com or amazon.com. And if you like the electronic versions, you can go there too. Kindle, Nook. Find out why we got a 5-star rating across the board. It's a quick read. You'll love it. I guarantee it. And help me get history written right. You know, Tom Molyneux's in the history books, but he's not written right. Find out what my big hang-up is by reading the book. And if you want a signed copy, just go to our website, www.billycboxing.com, and click on the book club section. Big fight this past weekend, Saturday. I guess you could call it a big fight. Saul Canelo Alvarez won a title, a junior middleweight title. You know, because the poor guy isn't quite a middleweight yet, is what the team Canelo says. He won via a 2-minute and 28-second knockout. Via a body shot in the 9th round to improve to 48 wins, 1 loss, 1 draw. Beefy Smith, as they call him, in my opinion, was never really in the fight, although he did try. And we got a bunch of emails to read. One thing, I'm a little uptight about is, HBO commentators were stating during the broadcast that the titles really don't mean anything. As a matter of fact, they refer to Canelo as the linear world middleweight champion, which I found pretty amazing. Who does look at the titles anyway? I don't know. We got Dax Khan scheduled to join us in a half hour. I got a bunch of emails to read. But first, joining me right now, Sal Rocky Senecola. What's up, Sal?
Good morning, Bill. How are you?
Oh, not too bad. I'm a little confused. Canelo beat Liam Smith for Smith's WBO junior middleweight title. Yeah, now, I know how we don't kind of look at the titles. I mean, if you look at the Billy C rankings up on the website, we rank the top 10 fighters in each division. We don't really look at anybody's titles. I mean, there's so many of them. But what's your thoughts on HBO referring to him as the linear middleweight world champion? I mean, here's a guy that blatantly backed out and chickened out and chose to take a much easier path than fighting Triple G. What's your thoughts on that? And, of course, your thoughts on the fight itself, Canelo beating Smith on Saturday night in Texas.
Okay, I can only handle one question at a time. No, I'm teasing. Hey, listen, I'm going to tell you something right now. Canelo Alvarez, when he got into that ring, he was at least 165 pounds. And it just seemed so much bigger than Smith and stronger, and he was. The linear championship. Well, let's see. How much credibility does that have in all the world of title belts here? I don't really call it too much or pay too much attention to that. Like I said, there's too many belts, there's too many titles, and there should be a world champion. There could be a country champion, and there could be whatever else they want to do, a state champion, I don't care. But all these other championship belts that have been evolving or manufactured by the promoters and by the sanctioning bodies to create more money and more things, guess what? There's only one world. Thank you, Boom Boom Mancini, who came up with that. That's right. There should be one title.
Well, the way they refer to the lineal title, they go back all the way, when they started the glove era. Back in the early, actually the late 1800s, and they basically follow the guy who beat the guy, right? They forget about all the titles. The guy who beat the guy. So if you go all the way back to non-parallel Jack Dempsey, who was the world middleweight title, and you follow it, the guy who beat the guy to beat the guy to beat the guy, all the way up, you end up with Cotto being the middleweight champion, and then of course Canelo beat Cotto, so that's why they said it. I mean, they had some substance there, but the way you back away and avoid the fight with Triple G, and then at the end of the fight, he's saying, let me give you the quote. This is basically one of the quotes, and I love normally I don't even watch or listen to the BS interviews from Max Kellerman, but he did kind of put Oscar on the hot seat, and he said, "Hey, we know your promoter is taking the chicken shit path, but what about you?" Basically, here's what Canelo said after the fight. He said, "I felt comfortable on the ropes. We trained for that in the gym. We knew he was tough. He was a champion for a reason, and he came to fight, which is good because we were able to give the fans a great fight. When I hit him in the body, I knew it hurt him. I hope everything's okay with my thumb. I injured it in the second round. Tomorrow, meaning yesterday, he'll see the doctor and he'll sit down with his team. This might be my last fight at 154. We have made Triple G a good offer. It's all on him now. I saw the Triple G fight last week. It was nothing different. This is my era and my time right now. I want to fight the best and keep making history. The offer to Triple G was twice as much as Triple G has ever made in a ring. The weight is no longer an issue. I'm willing to fight at the 160-pound weight limit. I fear no man. We made the offer. Now it's on him. Let's wait for the response." He made the offer. This is first of all, I don't even know if that's a true statement. I've never heard anything about an offer being made. Yeah. I would have thought that Team Triple G would have mentioned it. It's easy for fighters to say, "Oh, we made an offer. Now it's up to him." The truth of the matter is it was the offer realistic? And like we said last week, Sal, who needs who right now? I mean, to tell you the truth, as far as I'm concerned, Canelo backed away from the fight. And as far as I'm concerned, Triple G is the best middleweight in the world today. Forget about Canelo's a junior middleweight champion. As a matter of fact, I updated the Billy C rankings this morning, and we're not even removing Canelo Alvarez from the middleweight division because I feel he's still a middleweight, and just because he won this title doesn't mean anything to me. What's your thoughts on them claiming that they made an offer, and what's your thoughts on them trying to position themselves, I'm saying them, meaning Team Canelo, right, as the A side, as the guy that makes all the decisions here?
Well, and that's short-lived in the reality of the negotiations. Once Canelo opens up the envelope and sees what tentative offer may have been extended or made to him, the bottom line is I think that Canelo Alvarez, and I'm sorry, Triple G, looking at the offer that was made to him by Canelo, I think if it is something that is entertaining, and no way is Triple G gonna not fight Canelo Alvarez. And I'll tell you, from what I saw in that fight, Canelo Alvarez's style is tailor-made for Triple G to be just blow him out of the water. But that's my opinion right there and there. But I want to see the facts. Or hear about them. We haven't heard anything from the Triple G camp yet. So let's let it simmer and see. But I think Triple G should be in the driver's seat as far as calling the shots because it's his title.
Well, the thing is this. I think, and maybe I'm just making assumptions, but I think that Triple G really doesn't care who's the A side and everything else. Which by the way, I found it. The unwritten rule, although there's no rule, but the unwritten rule is the champion gets to come out first. The champion gets announced first, unless you fight Canelo, apparently, because Canelo came out second. The champ had to go out first and wait. But they at least did announce Canelo first and the champion second. But let me just give the results because I got a bunch of emails I want to read. Let me just give the rest of the results on the card. As far as my thoughts on the Canelo win, I thought he looked solid. But like I said, this wasn't a tough opponent for Canelo. I mean, no disrespect to Liam Smith because he did come to fight.
He's a good fighter.
He came to fight. He came to fight. But the truth of the matter is Canelo. What's making me sick, and I can't believe I'm saying these things, but what makes me sick is that he's trying to copy Floyd so much that it's actually appalling. And although I don't like Floyd Mayweather as a human being, there's still only one Floyd. Floyd succeeded, and Canelo just looks like, that younger brother trying to follow the big brother and just can't make it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I don't know. I don't know, man. As far as his performance, can't take anything away. He was solid. He looked good, but it is what it is. Everybody looks good when they're hitting the heavy bag. You know what I'm saying? But anyway,
sure.
Also on that card, which incidentally, overall, I'm still sick that I had to shell out the $75 for the pay-per-view. I hope no one else did. It totally wasn't worth it. The fight itself was not worth it. The undercard was not worth it. It was filled with a boring fight after boring fight. Although I give a lot of credit to Willie Monroe, who improved to 20-2 with 6 knockouts when he won a unanimous decision over Gabe Rosado. Gabe Rosado is nothing like he used to be. What can I say? I mean, props to Willie Monroe and his team. 118, 110, 117, 111, 116, 112 were the way the judges saw that one. Rumor has it that Canelo's next opponent will be Willie Monroe, which is just another dragging out the BS of the fight that we really want to see. In the featherweight division, Jojo Diaz improved to 22-0 with 13 knockouts when he stopped Andrew Cancio in the 9th round at 2 minutes and 29 seconds. Cancio drops to 17 wins, 4 losses, and a couple of draws. Another comment by the group at HBO. They officially labeled Cancio a journeyman at 17-4. We wonder why the young fans today are so misguided. All they got to do is listen to some of these bozos doing the broadcasts and stuff, and we can find all the answers there. And in the super bantamweight division, Diego De La Hoya improved to 16-0 with 9 knockouts when he won a unanimous decision over Luis Duval, who drops to 22-3, 100-90, and 2 judges saw it at 99-91. Elsewhere in the boxing world, a new WBO cruiserweight champion, Oleksandr Usyk improved to 10-0 with 9 knockouts when he beat previously unbeaten Krzysztof Glowacki to win the WBO cruiserweight title. Glowacki drops to 26-1, 119-109, and 2 judges saw it the same, 117-111 in favor of Usyk. Also on that card, Andres Warzik improved to 33-1 with 19 knockouts when he stopped Albert Sosnowski in the beginning of the 6th round. In the light heavyweight division, Dominic Bassell improved to 23-8 when he scored a 12-round decision over Tony Averlant. The scores were 117-111, 118-111, and 116-112. In the welterweight division, Carlos Adames improved to 9-0 with 8 knockouts when he beat Ivan Alvarez with a fifth-round stoppage. A change-up in the super bantamweight division as veteran Hozumi Hasewaga improved to 36-5 when he clearly upsetted Hugo Ruiz to win the WBC's version of the super bantamweight title. Ruiz drops the fourth fight of his career. He's now 36-4 by losing 4. Jim Lampley, does that make Ruiz a journeyman? I don't think so, Jim.
I don't think so. Not quite yet.
Also, Shinuki Yamanaka improved to 26-0 with a couple of draws when he got up off the canvas and then scored a stoppage over Emilio Marino, who was another guy who was up there in the rankings right behind Yamanaka. And Marino drops at 36-5-1. Does that make Marino a journeyman fighter, Sal?
No, it doesn't make him a journeyman fighter quite yet.
Okay, all right, because, Jim Lampley said it, so that means, if he said it, it must be true.
It
right?
must be true.
Yeah.
Someone's book.
Yeah, in the Jim Lampley, I don't know shit book. But in the in the cruiserweight division, former WBA champ Firat Arslan improved to 38-8 with a couple of draws when he won a 12-round decision over Nuri Sarifi, who drops at 37-8, 118, 111, 115, 113 twice. Firat Arslan, 38-8-2. Does that make him a journeyman, Sal?
Bam, 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 bam. No, not yet. No. About 8 more losses, maybe.
Maybe, exactly. Former light heavyweight champ Karel Murat, he took care of a sacrificial lamb to improve to 30 wins, 3 losses, and a draw. Also in the heavyweight division, Manuel Char beat previously unbeaten Surfer Sarifi via a 10-round decision to improve to 30 wins and 4 losses. There's that 4 again. Does that make Manuel Char a journeyman, Sal?
He's on his way.
He's on his way. 97, 92,
no,
98,
and a journeyman
91.
is still dangerous. There's 2 classifications. Once you are a prospect, then a contender, and if you don't become champion, you're a contender. But then you may fall into the category as a journeyman later on.
Fred Cassie's a journeyman. Guys that have been around and are tough and give fighters
they're durable.
That's called a journeyman.
It's still dangerous.
4 losses, in my opinion, does not define a journeyman.
No.
Anyway,
does not define journeyman. That's not the definition. A journeyman is a certain type of fighter.
Former heavyweight gold medalist Olander Solis improved to 22-3 and struggled. But when they put him in with Todorovic, who drops to 8 wins and 10 losses, I don't know what happened to Solis. But anyway, some fights from Friday night. Ishii Smith, one of the most boring fighters ever to lace on a pair of gloves, didn't disappoint. So anybody that likes boring fighters, watch Ishii Smith. This guy, he's like the friggin' mold in somebody's basement that they can't get rid of. It just keeps coming back no matter what they do. He improves to 29-8. There's 8 losses. Does that make him a journeyman, Sal?
He's on his way.
His way. He beat Frank Galarza 95-95 was the way one judge scored it, and the other 2 had it in favor of Smith, 96-93 and 95-94. Justin D. LaRoche in the junior middleweight division improved to 16-1 when he scored a 10-round decision over Dominique Dalton, losing for the first time in his career. Jose Caetano improved to 20-4 when he won a 10-round decision over Alexis Santiago. And in the super middleweight division, Jalen Love was handed a journeyman. Now, this is a journeyman fighter, ladies and gentlemen. Jalen Love improved to 23-1 when he scored a 6-round stoppage over Deshaun Johnson, who drops to 21 wins, 20 losses, and 3 draws. Deshaun Johnson is a great definition of a journeyman. That's a guy that's been around. He wins some, loses some, sometimes gives a good showing. That's a journeyman. So anyway, we got
That's a journeyman. Definitively, he is a journeyman, and on his way, if he keeps losing, to be an opponent. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. Well, a journeyman is a gatekeeper. It's synonymous to gatekeeper. But we got several emails to read. This first one is from Joel. He says, "Hey Billy C, in the sport of boxing, as it seems, Saturday night, another story was told after Canelo beat Liam Smith, saying he offered Triple G double and triple his purse to make the fight happen. I somehow don't believe him. I'm sure this week we'll hear from K2 and Triple G that Canelo's side never offered them any sort of contract, but Canelo will say this to get the temporary focus off of him since he's been ducking Triple G by saying once again how he's ready to fight him and how the Mexicans don't F around. But truthfully, I don't think Canelo is even remotely ready for a Triple G fight, even after Brook gave Triple G trouble last week. What are your and Sal's thoughts on this? Boxing's a dirty sport, but in this case, I truly feel Triple G is ready whenever to fight Canelo, and that Canelo is afraid of another loss in his record, and that being the reason he's secretly avoiding Triple G. He says, lastly, with impressive victory, claiming the WBO Cruiserweight title in the process in only his 10th fight, I would like to see K2 bring Usyk to the United States, much like K2 and Takian work together to bring Roman Gonzalez to the United States. I would hope maybe in Triple G's next fight, if it's a pay-per-view or even regular HBO, that Usyk would be the opening fight at a telecast. What do you think of that idea? Well, first off, I think that's a good idea, and I hope so too, Joel. As far as my thoughts, and then we'll get Sal's on the Canelo Triple G. Listen, Canelo is blatantly trying to marinate a fight with Triple G under the guidance of his promoter, Oscar De La Hoya. In my opinion, although I don't think Canelo is afraid of Triple G, because I really don't think he is, I just don't think he's got the skills to beat Triple G. I think they are waiting and dragging it out, hoping that Triple G starts to age a little. They probably are chomping at the bit after his performance with Kell Brook. Kell Brook showed that Triple G is human. However, Kell Brook can move and punch on the move. He can land shots on the move, something that Canelo can't do. Canelo is good to stand in front of you and let his hands go, but he took a lot of shots. Liam Smith landed some shots flush on Canelo. If Canelo stands in front of Triple G, I think Triple G just chops him down like a tree. I still don't believe that Canelo has a chance against Triple G. Sal, what's your thoughts on Joel's email?
I think it's a good email, but I will tell you the same thing. I concur with you, Billy, because I really, and I like Canelo. I like Canelo Alvarez. I'm a fan of his. I like him. He's a good, solid fighter. I just don't like his braggadocio kind of statements with not having to face Triple G. But I think Triple G will destroy him, will crush him, and will overwhelmingly beat him. I don't see the fight going the distance. Canelo Alvarez has a style that's tailor-made for Triple G. Yeah, Canelo does have some great body shots, could stay in the pocket, we know that. But I think ultimately Triple G will be just too strong for him and too powerful with his punches. And so that's where I see that fight, if that does come in place.
You know, the funny thing is that, Triple G, in my opinion, doesn't have a great defense either.
No, he doesn't. Not great.
I mean, at least he doesn't display it, whether he's hiding it or not. I don't know. I mean, he seems to get hit, and him and Canelo, I think, would be fought at the center of the ring, and I just don't think. I think Canelo is bigger than Triple G. I think when they stand next to each other in the ring, you'll see it. But I think Triple G is a better fighter than Canelo.
I think he's a better fighter. I think inside he's a dangerous fighter, more dangerous. And I also think that, like I said, I think that Canelo Alvarez is very good, and I like him. I'll support him, but I would have to put my money on Triple G in that kind of fight, and we'll see what happens.
Another email. This is from my man Mitch. He says, Billy C., I think you're right. He says, what Oscar is doing, what he did, he said, what Oscar did on Saturday and what Bob Arum may or may not do with Pacquiao is a preview of the future of boxing. Oscar is showing the entire undercard online. He says, I remember some months ago you forecasted something along the lines of boxing being offered as a monthly package where you could get X amount of fights for a set fee. You could watch on mobile phones, iPads, computers, or your TV. Anyway, I've always halfway paid attention to what you were saying. Can you spell it out again? I think you're spot on based on what I'm seeing by Oscar De La Hoya Saturday. If your prediction is true, should I call you the Farmer's Almanac of Boxing? No, thanks for the email, Mitch. No, it's not the Farmer's Almanac of Boxing. It's just technology and how it's going. And what I had said, and I've said it several times, is that the future of how you watch television or whatever we're going to call it, entertainment, is going to be based on your preferences. And in this case, if it's boxing or all sports, I think you're going to be able to order a package from your provider and be able to see all of the available sporting or boxing events. Same thing if you like reality shows, you watch all the reality shows, and you'll get something tailored to you for X amount of fee per month. I think that's where it's going. I think it's very close to being there already. If Sal and I go online and we go to the same website, and just because Sal visits porn sites all the time and I don't,
never in my life.
We could go to the same website, and then Sal could be looking at different commercials, different pop-up ads than I am, based on our previous visits to other sites. Of course, mine might be looking at cooking sites and stuff because I have an interest in that, or other sports. And Sal will be getting, big sexual scenes popping up on his
Get the frick out of here.
Because he's such a porn guy. No, I'm only kidding. Do you ever hear Sal get so upset? Oh my God, I think I pressed a nerve. Now I know where I'm going to go every time. But anyway, of course, I'm only kidding. Hey, Billy and Sal, this is an email from Hungary. And my man, Tomas Boros.
Hungry?
Says,
I haven't even had breakfast yet.
Yeah, I know. I'm starving. He says, it's been a long time since my last email, but I always listen to your show. He says, one of my friends is a fight fan, just not boxing, but he was completely turned off by the quality of the action he saw in recent years. Granted, he doesn't watch everything, just the mainstream events. He always tells me he falls asleep during the fights, and he's not interested in another Klitschko-style hug fest. My friend is critical and is someone you would call a casual viewer with high expectations. Following my advice, he watched the Triple G Brook fight, and we were chatting through the event. In round one, when Brook buckled, he said, "Here we go again, fight's over. This is how those mismatches impact his view on boxing. This is how cynical he got." He says, then his next reaction, "Oh, he's fighting back. This is unexpected." Make a long story short, although he didn't like the ending, he wasn't aware of the eye injury. He said it was finally a fight worth watching. See, it doesn't take a lot. It doesn't take a classic win to get these potential viewers to come over. Just some willingness to actually fight. I agree with that. He said, "I'll also give you my view on Canelo-Smith. First impression, the English guy is tough and he means business, but he's completely overmatched. My second impression, Canelo gets hit a lot. Overall, this was a showcase fight for Canelo with a tailor-made opponent. Smith actually surprised Canelo with a few good shots, but the size and power disparity was glaringly apparent. I'm not impressed with this fight. The only two things I learned are Canelo's defense is leaky and that Smith is tougher than he looks." He says, "I think Canelo is taking this Mike Tyson quote literally. I could sell out Madison Square Garden masturbating." Remember when he said that? He said,
I didn't remember that.
Yeah, no, Tyson said that. He says, the sad thing is it seems to work for him considering the viewership numbers. I don't think this will last, but the sad reality is that he's a brand name and people will buy the brand first and quality second. Triple G should focus on the Charlo brothers and Lara to be in a better bargaining position. I don't think the Triple G Canelo fight happens in 2017. I feel that Oscar De La Hoya and his team will come up with all sorts of stunts to postpone this fight and keep selling the Canelo brand, making as much money as they possibly can. Good for business, bad for the sport. That's the sad reality. Keep up the good work. Yeah,
Pretty good email.
I mean, I can't disagree. I mean, I think that Tamas hit everything on the head. He's right. You do need, all you need to get the casual fan to come over is to actually provide them with some quality fights. And I too agree that it seems nothing more than the marination process. And I personally think, and Sal, you and I agreed, I think, last week, that Triple G doesn't need Canelo. I think Canelo needs Triple G more. I think the fact, and I don't care what Canelo says, I think the fans believe that Canelo is ducking Triple G. I don't think you could bring up any kind of documentation you want. I think the fan base is still going to believe Canelo's ducking Triple G. What do you think?
No, I think you're right. I think the fans are pretty smart to read between the lines, and they know, Triple G, he doesn't turn down anybody that's worthy of stepping in the ring, and I think that Canelo and his faux pas, if you will, with resigning one belt to do this, to do that, and his saying that it was to get himself in a position to fight him, was just totally the opposite. So I think there are people that really are open to seeing the truth of that whole disparity, that whole thing there. And I think Canelo's got to man up and try and get this fight with Triple G. I'd like to see it in the first quarter or by the first half of the next year.
I think we learned something from the desire and the want to see Pacquiao and Mayweather.
We did. Thank you.
And then we got the anticlimactic fight. I don't think we would get
5 years too late now.
Yeah, 5 years too late. And I don't think we got the I don't think we will get the anticlimactic ending to Triple G and Canelo. However, I certainly don't want to wait for it. And I say this, Canelo, who else are you going to fight? I mean, really, the divisions that he fights in isn't chock full. Everybody's already been beaten by Triple G in the middleweight division, so Canelo can't really go into the middleweight division and claim he's the best guy in there without fighting the best guy, which is Triple G. So, and I don't think Canelo can make the 154 limit. He looked big, as everyone knows. Neither one of them did the VADA testing, which a big flag goes up on that. But listen, Canelo looked great against Liam Smith, but Liam Smith was no world beater. We all knew it. I just hope no one bought the fight, because if you buy it, you're going to keep on getting those kinds of fights. But anyway, we got one more email here, and this one is from my man Angel. He says, "Hola, Senor C. Now that we got Triple G and Canelo winning their fights, I'm getting the feeling that we may have a Mayweather-Pacquiao type of wait for these two fighters to meet up. Do you see this happening? The public wants this fight, but I get the feeling Canelo's camp isn't willing to make the fight just yet. The way I see things, 2016 will come and go with no fight, and the same may be the case in 2017. It looks to me like both camps aren't even close to making this fight happen. It's all about the numbers and diva posturing." Listen, Angel, you're my man. I agree that I do not think that the fight will happen, of course, this year. I think it has to happen next year. If it doesn't happen next year, I don't see the fight happening, because I don't see Triple G sticking around much longer. He's already 34 years old, or maybe even 36, I forget. So he's not going to really stick around much longer. I think that once he fights Daniel Jacobs, and then, assuming he can get the fight with Billy Joe Saunders, there's nothing else to prove. That's actually the only fight that you're going to see Canelo go after now, is the Billy Joe Saunders fight, because that's the only one that keeps him relevant in the middleweight division. If Triple G decides to take on Daniel Jacobs, which he's been ordered by the WBA. So I personally think that you could see this fight either happening in the end of next year or not at all. And I think it's totally Canelo's fault. Triple G can't be expected to wait around forever. And quite honestly, I see Triple G, as of today, right now, I see Triple G beating Canelo Alvarez with no problem. Sal, you predicted a stoppage. I could see a stoppage happening very easily. I could also see both fighters hitting the canvas, but I see Triple G winning the fight, and I would like to see it sooner than later, to be honest with you.
Well, I would too, Billy. And like I said, I hope we could see it before the middle of next year. And, I could almost picture, correct me if you think differently, I could almost picture a similar fight, almost like we would see Tommy Hearns versus Marvin Hagler in the middle of the ring, 3 explosive rounds. Maybe this will be 6 explosive rounds. But I think out of the inside fighting, I think Triple G will be the victor. But that's how I see the fight going. I see it being a great great couple of rounds.
I could definitely see it be that kind of a fight because I think deep down Canelo is kind of pissed.
Canelo does, and let's do. You said something so important earlier, Billy. You said something about you don't, in your heart of hearts, believe that this is all Canelo's fault. I think it has a lot to do with De La Hoya and his management or his positioning and his trying to vie for the monies and everything else to elongate his status as not having to face Triple G. So I think a lot of it is his promotional backing. Because I do think in his heart of hearts, Canelo does believe he could beat Triple G.
Oh, yeah, and I think that's why they would go toe-to-toe. One last thing I want to mention before we bring Dax on is that in the middleweight division, speaking of the middleweight division, Chris Eubank Jr., backed out of his fight against Tommy Langford, which was scheduled for another, I think, next week. And he claims that he got a injury. Many people believe it's BS. As a matter of fact, he vacated his belt that the fight was supposed to be contested for. And Frank Warren, being pissed off, issued a statement. He said, I'm very disappointed to hear the statement published by Chris Eubank due to the fact that we're hours away from one of our fighters appearing on an international event at America's biggest football stadiums. To further developments, we'll have to wait until we speak to the BBBSC. Thereafter, we'll make a formal statement regarding this situation and the event. Although we're disappointed about the Eubank statement, we're not surprised, as the public knows full well for themselves. They, meaning Eubank Jr. and his father, make a habit of talking up fights but not following through. They are so incredibly unpredictable, unprofessional, and very difficult to work with. I think he speaks the truth, Sal, and joining us to get his thoughts is Dax Khan. What do you think? I mean, this doesn't shock you, does it, Dax?
No, it doesn't shock me whatsoever. I have one of two opinions on that. Either Chris Eubank Jr. really is hurt, maybe not to the degree that his father is trying to bring it up to, but I still think that Chris Eubank Jr. might be a little bit bothered on what happened in his fight before the last one, with what his, putting his opponent into a coma. Chris Eubank Jr. is a young man that, we've seen that affect fighters in different ways. We've actually seen some guys be tentative inside the ring and never able to pull that trigger again. And we've seen some guys actually just totally collapse inside that ring and never be able to get through those ropes. So, in my opinion, this could be a reason, what was going on here. Why the Triple G contract was delayed, where Chris Eubank Jr. mentally just needs more time to grasp what's happening, decide whether or not this is a sport he wants to continue with. Because even though this is a brutal sport, nobody sane goes in there, with the intention to hurt their opponent in a permanent type fashion, and that's almost what happened with Chris Eubank Jr.
Yeah, but it doesn't help that his father makes it difficult. But you make a good point. It's something I didn't even think of, that he might be, feeling the effects of, his previous fight with the catastrophe happening. But good point. The fights this weekend, Dax, before you give us a social media rundown, Canelo Alvarez beats Liam Smith. I don't think that surprised anybody. But what about some of the comments? I mean, I got all uptight about HBO referring to him as the linear world middleweight champion, which technically I guess he is. And then the next breath saying that there's no, that today's belts are only used for promotional purposes, which I agree with. And the point is they seem to be saying it for their benefit, and almost losing focus on the fight that they were supposed to be calling and really trying to promote the upcoming Sergey Kovalev and Andre Ward fight. And when the smoke cleared, Canelo Alvarez did what I thought he was going to do. I mean, he was in with an overmatched opponent. He picked up a trinket. He comes out of left field and says they've made an offer to Triple G that they haven't taken. What's your whole thoughts on the whole weekend?
Well, that is what, that is more or less what, the social media talk was. And, just a few clarifications of what you guys had already spoke about. I know on fight night, I know a lot of people were wondering what Canelo weighed. I have a reliable source says he was 170 pounds on fight night.
I called 165, but go ahead.
No, I thought that he weighed closer to 170 is what I heard.
Yeah.
Yeah, 170 is what I heard. Of course they're not going to disclose that. But, some people that I know who were around in the area said, 170 is what the word was back in the locker rooms over at the stadium. As far as the comments made during the show, with Max Kellerman, he once again showed why he's become such a company man. And, he himself, like a lot of Triple G opponents, he's a shell of what he once was in terms of a broadcaster. Only Colonel Bob Sheridan said things as they were, and that's because Colonel Bob's already, solidified his status as in this sport, where he's going to go down in terms of being a broadcaster when he said that, Canelo took this fight because he avoided Triple G at the middleweight division. You have to applaud Colonel Bob for those comments. Even Liam Smith admitted the only reason why I landed this fight is because he ducked the fight with Triple G. This is a guy who, knows this was an opportunity for him. Whether or not it was a smart opportunity, he could have probably stayed in his over in the UK and had some more easy fights. But this was a big money fight, and I think that his stock actually went up in this fight. I predicted Canelo was going to win, but I also said it was going to be tougher than a lot were expecting. A lot of people said that Canelo was going to blow this guy out in 2 or 3 rounds. That's because of lack of footage that they've seen on Beefy Smith. And Beefy Smith went in there. He did a great job. He just wasn't quite as skilled, and he wasn't quite had the punching power that Canelo did. But either way, he made a good showing for himself. Now, Bill, the man on the spot right here, and I don't even know if Canelo's doing it himself, but, between him and Oscar De La Hoya, they're putting him in a very tough situation. Do you understand what I mean?
With who? Canelo?
Yes. First, he is remember these words that are continuously said, the most marketable, and he is the biggest name in boxing. Yet he's not the biggest guy that's talked about all the time, which, with the biggest name in boxing is usually the one that everybody comes to first. And there's a lot of other guys that people talk about when it's not a Canelo fight week, so that shows you're not the biggest name in boxing. Now, Oscar De La Hoya, Canelo is scheduled to fight his next fight in New York. Oscar De La Hoya came up with some comments saying that I don't think anyone has fought in 3 different states in a year, and in referencing that upcoming bout. Oscar, my first thought was, you guys speaking about journeyman before, Darnell Boone, which everybody knows. Darnell Boone last year fought in 3 states, and the year before that, or 2013, not only did Darnell Boone fight in 3 different states, but he fought in 2 different countries, and against quality opposition, perhaps better than what Canelo fought this last weekend. And then there is a guy over in the DeBella camp that, really, really, really had some harsh words on Canelo before the fight, and that's Sergey Derevchenko. He stated because Willie Monroe and Gabe Rosado, the winner of that, was proposed to be Canelo's first title defense should he have won against Beefy Smith. Derevchenko said, I would beat Monroe and Smith. I would beat Monroe and Rosado on the same night. Canelo is an embarrassment. He's a fraud of a champion. Have him fight me. I'll fight for a minimal purse. Are those fighting words?
Well, they are. But, it's interesting that you say in his first title defense, because I don't think he's even going to keep that title. I think that title is going to be vacated. I don't think that he can possibly make 154 anymore, although he did for this fight. But they also didn't have any VADA testing, so I don't think he's going to stay at that weight. Willie Monroe, who should he get the fight, which I'm not a big fan of the fight, was bigger than Gabe Rosado, weight-wise, the night of, and also at the weigh-in. So, you can't expect him to go to 154. So I don't know. And I do think that those are fighting words. But, listen, the sport of boxing, Dax, has become a whole bunch of trying to use the media and social media to land fights, and it's BS. And to go back to your original point, which you started, because you threw about 90 of them at us, was the fact that what Triple G, you're saying about how Canelo claims to be the biggest draw and everything. Now, he did do very well. They had 50,000 people at the stadium, which I was a little surprised at, personally. Yeah. I was. But we don't know what the particulars were, if they let people in for free or whatever they did. But let's assume they didn't. It's going to be interesting to see what kind of pay-per-view numbers are out. And I think that between the pay-per-view numbers, that is where they're coming up with he's the biggest name in boxing. Because I agree with what I think you were alluding to, Dax. I don't think he is. I think more people want to see Triple G fight. I talk to many people who aren't even boxing fans, and they always ask me, who's this Triple G guy? You know, so he's the interest level. Not that Canelo isn't, but I think Triple G is. I think he's got more people interested in watching his fights than Canelo has in his.
Absolutely. You know, more people talk about Triple G. Canelo just happens to have a bigger promoter, and he has been able to be put on a broader stage for, mainstream fans, or fans who aren't diehard fans of the sport. So that's why he's known a little more. And, of course, he has, a high percentage of his fans, which is another reason down in Texas where he was, they did so well at the Live Gate, is because Canelo's he's a huge icon down in Mexico in terms of sporting. But even Canelo and his team, who do they talk about all the time? Talk about Triple G, even when they don't want to comment before the fight. Canelo talks about how he wasn't impressed with the win over Kell Brook. His coach had no interest in discussing Golovkin or his win because, that tells me that they're getting bothered by the fact that everybody's coming after them with the talk of Triple G. When everybody in the sport, and you're the biggest name, is continuously bringing up another fighter, that's got to get under your skin. Now, a few weeks ago, and I can understand the criticism, and it would be fair criticism, that Triple G was criticized for taking the fight with Kell Brook, just as Canelo was criticized for taking the fight with Amir Khan. You got a welterweight against a middleweight, although be it Kell Brook was a lot bigger than Amir Khan. But either way, it's still a welterweight versus a middleweight. Now, Kell Brook stated after that fight, I want 154, that is the division I'm going after next. He said it in his post-fight before we even knew he had a fractured eye socket. Kell Brook yesterday said on some UK sports channels live, as soon as I'm healed, I want the Canelo fight. Now, Oscar De La Hoya will try to play off that Kell Brook isn't a big enough name, he's not a big enough draw, but we've seen what happened over in the UK when Kell Brook faced Triple G, what type of draw Kell Brook is. There is no way they'd be able to avoid this guy. There's no valid reason they'd be able to avoid this guy, and Kell Brook would be a genuine, legitimate 154, 155, whatever Canelo calls himself these days, fighter. So how could they avoid this fight? And I actually believe they have put themselves in a no-win position here, because if they don't answer one of these challenges, Canelo's stock, even if he is the biggest name in boxing now, is going to plummet.
He's going to go after Billy Joe Saunders. That's the plan.
Another fraud.
Well, I know, but I mean that they know. You see, one of the mistakes that Team Triple G made is that Triple G has indicated and made no secret of the fact that he wants all of the belts to unify the division. And the only one left, technically, is Billy Joe Saunders' WBO belt. So if Canelo can get to Saunders before, and especially now since the WBA threw a wrench in and actually is ordering a better fight, the Daniel Jacobs against Triple G, you watch. Canelo's going to go after Saunders, collect that belt, and WBO is going to let him walk in because he's got the junior middleweight belt in the WBO. That is going to be his bargaining chip, because other than that, I don't think that Triple G needs Canelo. I think if I'm Triple G's team, at this stage, I say let Canelo rot. Let him suffer, because the fans will crucify him more for ducking Triple G than Triple G just taking other opportunities.
Oh, absolutely. And Billy Joe Saunders, the guy who called out Triple G after the Kell Brook fight, and another guy who says, I want to fight the best, his next opponent is going to be either Rob Brandt or it's going to be Arthur Akavov. So much for Billy Joe Saunders. We know what we got going on right there.
Well, I know that Sal, you know it takes Billy Joe Saunders 18 months to prepare for Triple G.
18 months, and I think he started though maybe 2 weeks ago. So we should see that come around in about a year and a half.
Yeah, about 18 months from now.
About 18 months from now.
Yeah,
less than 18.
As far as the offer now that Golden Boy is stating, they $12 million is arguably or supposedly the figure they threw over at Golovkin's team. But and a lot of blind fans might be falling for it. But Tom Laufer, the boss man over on Triple G's camp, said our phones were open after the Canelo Khan fight. They were open after the Triple G Kell Brook fight, and they're open now after the Canelo-Smith fight. How come they're not ringing? So who do we believe here?
Well, I certainly don't believe anything from the Oscar De La Hoya camp, because they are pulling the same stunts that Mayweather did. Mayweather said the same things and everything else. We offered this, we offered that with the Pacquiao thing. But the bottom line is, credit where credit's due. Mayweather was able to pull it off. Mayweather's Mayweather. Mayweather, at least had the pedigree. And I'm appalled that Team Canelo is blatantly following the Mayweather path. And really, as much as I disagreed with the way Mayweather did it, at least he had a right to do it. I don't think Canelo does. I honestly don't.
Mayweather sold the fight. That's, we criticize, and I agree quite a bit how boxing is so much like pro wrestling because of these build-ups. But Mayweather sold the fight. And a lot of guys, even Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson, some of the biggest names in history, they sold that fight before the fight ever took place to kind of compensate for whatever action didn't take place inside that ring, or however short that fight was going to last. In reference to a young Mike Tyson, Canelo, he doesn't sell a fight. He just stands there and he says nothing. He just stares like a deer into the headlights when the question is asked. Even when it's through interpretation, he just looks at that microphone, wondering why somebody's talking to him, almost in an arrogant type way. And Oscar De La Hoya, gives him this look like, this Oscar De La Hoya reminds me of a seagull on the beach, and the people walk away and they leave their picnic basket there, and Oscar De La Hoya is just ready to sweep down in there and grab whatever crumbs are left around Canelo to put into his pocket, because I really believe Oscar De La Hoya has shrunk that far down. I've lost all respect for Oscar De La Hoya, who, when he started Golden Boy Promotions, I was a big fan of, and he made great fights. But, as of right now, Oscar De La Hoya is living vicariously through Canelo. He's trying to make up for what he never accomplished in his fight in terms of he was a huge name, of course, but in terms of never getting that big win. And he wants to be able to say that his prize pupil, his number one fighter, Canelo, was able to do that. And he's using Canelo to pick up where he fell short. If that makes any sense.
Canelo's biggest win, really, to date, is Cotto.
And again, look at what, and not only, look at the version of Cotto that was on top of it.
But I'm just saying.
So that's kind of sad. And I believe Canelo lost to Araceli Lara.
I'm just saying, the biggest victory had to be Cotto. I mean, regardless of which version of Cotto was there, it had to be. But anyway, any final social media stuff you want to throw at us there, Dax?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Word is that two-time Olympian, Paddy Barnes is going to be turning pro later on this year. He's a bronze medalist from Ireland, light flyweight. The Alexander Usyk and Christoph Golacki fight was absolutely stunning this weekend. A lot of people, this is why we are against a lot of fighters becoming announcers, because Gregory Proska might be the worst fighter turned commentator ever with his one-sided scoring. People are wondering what's really going on with Danny Garcia. Is he fighting David Peralta, or is he fighting John Molina Jr.? So, there's quite a bit of, gossip, more or less, is going on around social media. But before we go, most of all, I think we should give our condolences to referee Sparkle Lee. Her brother Howard Lee, a sergeant first class in the U.S. Army, passed away last week. She and her family were beside herself, so, that just some condolences from us over here at the Billy C. Boxing Network and the Talking Boxing Billy C. family. He was, a very young man who fought for the country. So, just our condolences to them, and hopefully, your grief passes quickly.
Thanks, Dax, for putting that out there, and I appreciate your insight, and we look forward to next time, my man.
All right, everybody, and talk to you soon.
All right, take care.
Have a good day.
That's Dax Khan. You can check out his column up on BillyCBoxing.com. Sal, I just to finish up about Canelo, how does a guy dominate an opponent like he did on Saturday, regardless of other options he may or may not have had, and chose the opponent he chose? But how does a guy dominate, stand in front of a mic, say what we want to hear in a way, at least saying, oh yeah, I want to fight Triple G, we made the offer to him, not giving us a time frame, and then walk away like he's still the guy, when most people, the elephant in the room here is the fact that, I think that people deep down believe he's ducking Triple G. And I don't think that he can say or do anything except get in the ring with him. I mean, how can you criticize his performance? Because you really can't. He beat Liam Smith decisively. Broke him down. I mean, in my opinion, there's no better way of knocking a guy out than a body shot. I mean, it just paralyzes the opponent. But even despite a great performance, does he walk out of the arena a winner?
Well, it was a fight that definitely he looked good at performing and being dominant from the get-go. And like we said, Liam Smith wasn't really in the fight. And, I thought Canelo really he probably had tougher sparring sessions getting ready for the fight. But not taking too much away from Liam. He was a champion, and, he's a decent fighter. But, when you're stepping up into the ring, Canelo is a world-class fighter. He's a champion. And, he was so effective with his blows from the outside, the inside. And anytime Liam Smith even had him on the ropes, it was only because Canelo wanted him there. I mean, Canelo let him do that. I think Canelo just was really just getting some target practice and things. And I just don't understand how he can, try to avoid Triple G now, because he looks so dominant in this fight. And I think if he really puts his money where his mouth is, it's going to be a fight that the fans are willing to see right now, and it would be a good fight. And let's see what he does.
I don't think his fan base would diminish if he lost to Triple G. And
no, I don't think so, because fans are loyal to their fighters, and whether they rationalize or whether they see things, and I don't think it'll hurt to hurt Canelo. I mean, pain-wise, but I think maybe, but I think, and pride-wise, but I think, Canelo is a good young fighter. He's a young fighter. And now he's got a lot of ring wars from his amateur days and everything else, and he's got a lot of pro fights under his belt already at a young age. But I think he still has a lot more room to spend a couple more years in the game of boxing, and he'll be dominant for a very long time if he doesn't get too beat up along the way. And each fight he does take a risk of getting a couple shots here and there. So that's why I think if he's going to be at his best, he should face Triple G as soon as possible, get in there, win, lose, or draw. I don't think it hurts his marketability, and I think he will still be a fighter that people want to see. And his fan base will rally behind him even more to support. it'll be like a phoenix rising up from the flame.
You know, you mentioned, you refer to Liam Beefy Smith as decent. He was a decent fighter. And I agree that he's a decent fighter. The sad part about this is that decent fighters are world champions today.
Yes, and when I said that and it left my lips, I said, "Wow, should I retract that?" No, I wasn't, because he was a decent fighter,
And
I didn't see anything spectacular to any one thing that he displayed or did. He was gutsy, but every time he tried to surmount an attack, Canelo had an answer for him, and I don't think he had a plan B. Thanks, Mike Tyson. I think he totally just was average.
I think it just shows you the condition of the sport and how people perceive who's good and who's not, and it's wrong. And I agree with you about Canelo. I think Canelo has nothing to lose, even if he lost a fight with Triple G. As a matter of fact, you know, if you look at it and think outside the box, you know, they're thinking marinate, try and, you know, make this $100 pay-per-view, make it like a big money fight like Mayweather Pacquiao. But if you think about it, assuming the fight is a competitive one, why not look for the second fight too? Why not think that they could possibly have 2 or even 3 fights amongst themselves? You know, all making big money. So I don't know. I think it's disheartening that the sport has went down the path that it has. But speaking of paths, Sal, we got the trivia question today, and it's one that we had last week, and no one's gotten it right yet. So, you know, for the first person that can email me the correct answer to this trivia question, I'll send you a great prize. My email address is billy@talkinboxing. That's TALKINBOXING.com. And remember, if you take the time to email me a question, comment, concern, we'll take the time to read about it and discuss it here on the show. So here's today's trivia question. What former world champion in his first professional fight defeated a man he would later beat for the world championship?
Wow.
What former world champion in his first pro fight defeated a man he would later beat for the world championship? I gave a hint, so I'm going to give you a hint again. This guy fought between 1940 and 1970. His career fought between those years, 1940 and 1970. And obviously, the guy who he fought is a guy that he fought multiple times. And I will give another hint, not just the 2 times that the question suggests. The question says, what former world champion in his first pro fight defeated a man he would later beat for the championship? So you know he fought at least 2 times, and I'm giving you a hint that he fought more than 2 times, that these 2 guys fought each other more than 2 times. If you're the first one to email me, billy@talkinboxing, that's TALKINBOXING.com, you'll win a great prize. And no, Sal, it's not Jack Dempsey.
I was just gonna say.
No, it's not. It's not your canned answer. Hey, programming note: we will not be doing a live show Friday. I'm going to start telling you that now. So we'll try to open up the phone lines on Thursday's show. So mark that down on your calendars. I got This Day in Boxing History, Sal, which is being sponsored by the Gourmet Spice Company and their remarkable spice, Kenny Bears rub, which I love on everything. A lot of stuff happened on this day, September 19th. First and foremost, in 1935, Babe Risco wins a 15-round decision over Teddy Yaretz to win the NBA and New York World Middleweight titles, and that took place in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. That's kind of strange that they fought for the New York World title in Pittsburgh, but during that era, the New York State Athletic Commission was actually considered the bomb. They were the most recognizable commission in the sport. So, on this day, September 19th, in 1954, Robert Cohen wins a 15-round decision over Chamarine Songkicharat to win the vacant world bantamweight title, and that took place in Bangkok. On this day in 1991, Horacio Tatsushosha knocks out Greg Richardson in the 10th round to win the WBC World Bantamweight title, and that took place in Tokyo. On this day in 1992, Chris Eubank, not junior, senior, wins a 12-round decision over Tony Thornton to retain his WBA World Super Middleweight title, and that took place in Scotland on this day in 1992. On this day in 1945, Sammy Angot, great fighter, great fighter, knocks out Ike Williams in the 6th round to improve to 76 wins, 22 losses, and 7 draws in their matchup at Forbes Field in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Williams, he drops to 67 wins, 9 losses, and a draw. And Sal, on this day, September 19th in 1998, Evander Holyfield wins a 12-round decision over Vaughn Bean to retain his WBA and IBF World Heavyweight titles from the Georgia Dome in Atlanta. Bean loses for only the second time in his career, dropping to 31 wins and 2 losses. And that's what took place on this day, September 19th, in the sport of boxing.
Very good. Wow.
A lot of stuff, huh?
A lot of stuff took place that day.
A lot of stuff took place that day. And
yes.
Another thing that took place
this day,
on this day. This day in those years. But another thing,
this day in that era.
Another thing that took place on this day, this year, actually, that took place today, is that Sal and I both think that Canelo Alvarez is ducking Triple J. That's what I think. And maybe not so much him, Sal, but his team. I think they're leading him down the wrong path. I think the sport needs that fight sooner than later. What's your quick thoughts on that?
I think you just said it right. The sport does need this fight sooner than later, because you know what? We don't want to wait around. It's not going to be another Mayweather-Pacquiao. And like I said, just like we saw Kell Brook Triple G, Kell Brook's market value did not go down in any way, shape, or form with losing to Triple G. And I think the same thing could be said if Triple G does get in the ring with Canelo Alvarez and does defeat him, as I do believe he will. I don't think it's going to hurt too much Canelo Alvarez fan base as well as his market value.
And I posed a question to all you guys out there. Email me, Billy@TalkinBoxing, TalkinBoxing.com. Should Triple G and Canelo, should that fight take place sooner or later? And give me your reasons why. Do you agree with Team Canelo trying to, quote, marinate, unquote, this fight to try to fleece you guys, the fans, for more money? Or do you think that the time is now and Canelo and Triple G need to fight now for the betterment of the sport of boxing? What's your thoughts? Drop me an email, Billy@TalkinBoxing, TalkinBoxing.com. I think that's a great. I think overall that's the big question here. I don't think that we can criticize Canelo's performance.
No.
He stopped Smith like he should have. He dominated Smith like he should have. But Golden Boy Promotions dominated us, the fan, by charging us for that fight and charging us for that piss poor undercard. I mean, I don't want to pay a pay-per-view. I don't want to pay money for a pay-per-view to watch fighters develop. The pay-per-views should be put aside for world championship fights between top-notch fighters, from the main event up and all through the co-main and co-main fights. We should not be watching young fighters on their way up on a pay-per-view. I'm sorry. And spend $75 to do it. I think it's BS.
No, I agree with you 100%.
Well,
yes, sir.
Everybody, hold that thought. Make sure you tune in tomorrow morning. Same bat time, same bat channel. Until then, I'll leave you with this. Ciao, baby.